Well, welcome to the E-Cafe. Thank you for tuning in today to this virtual cafe where it is our goal to educate, empower, and energize you to be your best self. And I'm Kay Elizabeth Green. It is a pleasure to work with all of you highly sensitive, natural born leaders, which I refer to as indigos. Live your best life ever. And because of everything that's been going on, I've been extending invitations to light workers like my friend Ann Menik. Menik. Okay. I told you I would probably.
That's okay.
Hi, Ann. How are you today?
I'm doing very, very well. Thank you, Elizabeth, for having me on your program.
Oh, thank you for coming on. I think that all of those that are tuning in now, or those that tune in later for the replay, will really get a lot out of today's show. With everything that's been going on, I'm in Las Vegas, so we are locked down.
And I'm in San Clemente, California, so we are also on lockdown. In fact, I think a mandatory order now.
Okay, so we've been talking social distancing, but one of the great things about the age that we're in right now is that instead of social, let's talk physical distancing. And will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you for asking. My name is Ann Menik. I am a women's wellness expert and a accredited Buteyko breathing practitioner. And I met Elizabeth actually in, it's been about 12 years now. Mm-hmm. So we had done some work together, and that's how we met in Las Vegas. I had taught yoga for 15 years in Las Vegas, and I taught yoga for golfers, yoga for hormone balance. I created a program at Nevada Fertility Center called Fertility Therapy Program using Qigong yoga techniques, as well as breathing and meditation for conception. So that was a wonderful experience. And then I now live in Southern California, which I love. And I now practice aromatherapy, as well as focusing on working with women, primarily with digestion, hormones, and breathing as being the base. So that is what I'm sharing with all of you today. And I feel a deep responsibility to share with you because of my information and knowledge. I feel that we all need this at this time. It would be irresponsible of me not to share and share this information with everyone, especially in our current situation.
I agree with you totally. And I thank you so much, Ann, for taking the time to do that. And the reason I asked you on is because my guidance and all, when I do the energy forecast on Sunday for the last 3 weeks, the message has been to breathe, get grounded. But as I was listening and going through social media, I realized that people don't know different techniques of breathing that can assist them in their emotional and physical well-being. You know, like we are talking about our emotional and mental well-being. Mm-hmm. You know, we're talking about our physical being and being safe and detoxing from that. But it's very important, especially for sensitives who are picking up not only their own vibrations, but picking up on others. And so I think it's very, very critical for those of us who know the light to share the light, to share different techniques and tools that you can use to calm that frantic voice that's running around in your head. And so that is why we are on today.
Yes, I appreciate that, because I am also an adult indigo. I'm definitely a sensitive, and I feel people's energy as well. And so one of the ways that helps me calm my mind and my body is to focus on my breathing. And so I will be sharing breathing techniques on how to breathe more efficiently.
Okay, so why don't we go ahead and get started, and I will alert you as people come on. People can always go back. So breathe well, be well.
Yes. So
I'm turning it over to Ann.
Great. So as I mentioned before, I am a women's wellness expert in digestion, hormones, and breathing, and accredited Buteyko breathing practitioner. So what is Buteyko? Buteyko breathing was discovered by a Ukrainian doctor named Konstantin Buteyko, who brought it to Australia and Russia. And that is in the 1950s. And so he has taught people about functional breathing patterns, and he has developed a method. And I was trained by Patrick McEwen, who was trained directly under Dr. Buteyko. So that is where I'm at as far as focusing on breathing and functional breathing patterns. And so that's what we're going to talk about today.
Okay.
So shall I
go ahead and go to the slide?
Oh, I'm sorry. Why don't am I controlling this, or are you?
There we go.
Okay, perfect.
You just need to go to the, when we're learning technology, folks, just go to the tab that you have your slides on and move from there.
Okay, so I'm trying to click that right now. For some reason, it's not moving. All right, here we go. There we go. Perfect. So we're going to talk about anxiety, stress, and panic. Now, anxiety and panic. Now, that is definitely what people are feeling in this moment, right? So stress is definitely the factor that causes anxiety and panic. And hyperventilation is basically breathing in excess of your metabolic requirements, which causes hypocapnia, which is basically low CO2. So hyperventilation is excessive breathing. So if we think about it, there's a wonderful quote by Lao Tzu and it says, "A perfect man breathes as if he is not breathing." And that quote stems from the monks, the Dalai Lama, Buddha, the ancient yogis, who actually practiced very low, slow breathing to the point where you don't feel it, you don't see it, and it is very, very light. And so that's what I'm going to share with you today.
Okay.
All right. So we're going to talk about how breathing affects our emotions and sleep. So if you think about it, when your emotions are off, your sleep is off. When your sleep is off, your emotions are off. And when your breathing is off, your emotions and your sleep are off. So how many times have you maybe not have had enough sleep? And how do you feel when you wake up?
Okay, and I think everybody can relate to that at this time, including myself with all of my techniques that I know. It's a practice that you have to work on.
Yes, and sleep is essential, just like breathing, right? So sleep isn't about the quantity, it is about the quality of sleep. So if you're sleeping 4 or 5 hours, which normally we would like 8 hours, and in fact, women actually need more sleep than men, believe it or not, because women are multitaskers. We are doing so much, not that men aren't. Women just need a little extra more time to rest than men do. And so when our sleep is off, it affects other parts of our body system, such as our endocrine system, which is our hormones, right? And it affects other parts. So sleep is essential. So it's not about quantity, it's about quality of sleep, all right? So consistent sleep. So very, very important. And breathing is also essential. If you think about breathing and hydration, we can actually live without water for several days, correct?
Okay.
And then, but breathing, we're not able to live without breathing. So if you think about that, breathing is essential. So we took our first breath when we were born, correct?
And we take our first breath when we're born, and we take our last breath when we
die. Exactly. It is the cycle, right? So again, everything is connected with our emotions, our sleep, and it all boils down to breathing. It's all connected. So we want to make sure that our sleep is important, our emotions are intact, that we are working on that, but it starts with breathing first and foremost.
Okay.
All right, great. So there's 3 types of gases that we use that are essential for breathing. So we're aware of oxygen, right? We all know about oxygen. We inhale oxygen, and we exhale carbon dioxide. But there's a third one, and it's called nitric oxide. And not many people know about nitric oxide. It was actually discovered in the 1950s. So when we breathe in through the nose, large amounts of nitric oxide are released within the nasal airways, which we call the paranasal airways. And I'm going to give you a little diagram here, or a little example. So the paranasal cavity is right over here. There's 4 paranasal sinuses right there. So when we inhale, right, it goes into the nose, obviously, and then it goes into our lungs, and it increases oxygen intake. So nitric oxide is necessary to help lower blood pressure and prevent cardiovascular disease because it opens the blood vessels to dilate. So nitric oxide is definitely one of the gases that's important in breathing. Now, here's the other thing that I, as a yoga instructor for so many years, did not realize that I was teaching. And I will be the first one to say that I was teaching breathing incorrectly in my yoga classes. And here's why. So we inhale oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide. When we hyperventilate, we are actually breathing in too much oxygen in our body, and we are exhaling too much CO2 in our body. So the harder you breathe, the more oxygen you're using. Therefore, the muscles and tissues are not getting the oxygen it needs to function. You also, when we exhale too much carbon dioxide, it actually causes hyperventilation. And CO2 is the primary stimulus to breathe. And CO2 is actually what helps the oxygen to be carried into the muscles, tissues, and organs. It is actually more important than oxygen itself, because our body actually has more oxygen in our body than we actually need. We actually exhale 25% of our oxygen when we're exercising. So we have more oxygen in our body than we do carbon dioxide. So if we think about it, CO2 is not a waste gas. It is actually the primary stimulus to breathe and allows the oxygen to get into the blood, and then from the blood into the muscles, tissues, and organs. So that's something that most people are not aware of.
Okay. It's always good to know, especially since we have the time, it's always good to know the science behind it, because a lot of people, myself included, just tell me how to do it. Just tell me how to do it. But while we have this extra time to really know why we are doing things, I think it's critical. But go ahead.
Thank you for sharing that, because I've been in the business of yoga, which is the biomechanics of it. And this is the biochemistry of breathing. So yes, we just, I would say inhale, exhale. And the reason why I say CO2 is the primary stimulus, there are times where I would teach my students to take a deep breath in, which is actually incorrect. And my students would say, I'm feeling dizzy. And the reason is, and at the time I didn't realize that, is they were breathing in too quickly, and therefore they were getting too much oxygen and exhaling too much CO2, which causes the dizziness. So inhaling deeply, take a deep breath in and exhale out. And that's how I taught my classes for years, and really going back to the original yogic state of breathing, which is low, slow, and deep, which is what we're going to learn today.
Okay.
Okay. So a normal person takes about 12 breaths per minute, and a healthy person takes about 5.5 to 6 breaths per minute. Now, so if someone is hyperventilating, they're actually taking more breaths. It could be 20 breaths per minute or more. So definitely a normal person breathes, but we want to actually get to about 6 breaths per minute. And that's the technique Buteyko, which I'm going to share with you. So here's a question that I want to ask everyone. When you're stressed, how do you breathe? Okay. And this is really, really important, because right now everyone is experiencing this, right? We're anxious, we're panicking, we're in fear mode, we're uncertain. And what happens to us is we become stressed, right? And as we know from research and studies, 90% of illnesses are caused by stress. And so I really want to make that point, because regardless of the coronavirus or not, when we are stressed, we are going to become ill. So we really have to focus on breathing in slowly and deeply. And so what do you think we do when we breathe when we're stressed? So I'm going to ask you.
Yeah, when we're stressed, it's up here. It's like in the throat that you can't catch your breath, almost like you've been running. Correct. And it's that's how I relate to it. It's almost like the same feeling that you get if you've been running, and especially me running, and you're out of shape and you can't catch your breath.
Correct. So when you're stressed, do you breathe faster or slower?
Faster.
Okay. When you are stressed, do you breathe through your upper chest or your diaphragm?
You are my upper chest.
Correct. And then when you're stressed, do you sigh more or do you sigh less?
You sigh more.
Correct. And then of course,
and to answer that, I haven't, but that's what I've been hearing a lot of people.
Correct.
You say, well, what's wrong? Oh, nothing.
Exactly. And that's a sign of dysfunctional breathing pattern, when we actually sigh a lot more than we do. And so, yes. And then of course, when you're stressed, does your heart rate increase or does it decrease?
It increases.
And then here's something people may not realize. When you're stressed, do you breathe through your nose or do you breathe through your mouth?
You're breathing through your mouth, because at least for me, that's the way it feels. It's like you can't get enough up your nose, opening up your mouth.
Correct. And then is your mouth dry or moist when you're stressed?
It's definitely dry.
Dry, yes. And so, yes, you're absolutely right. We, our heart rate is faster, we breathe faster, we sigh more. We don't focus on nose breathing. We focus more on oral breathing. And also you notice your breath, like your chest is, you know, expanding and contracting. So you can see it. It's a noticeable breath because you're hyperventilating for some people. And then it is usually in the upper chest. So I call that shallow breathing in the upper chest. And yes, our mouth is dry because we're breathing in through our mouth. So let me ask everyone out there a question. What do you think your nose is for? And I can ask you as well, Elizabeth, what is our nose for? What do we do with our nose?
Our nose is to filter the air. And at least that's what comes to me, is our nose is used to filter the air.
And what else do you think? So let's go back to basic. So our nose is for breathing, and our nose, yeah, and it's for smelling, correct. And what is our mouth for?
Eating, correct. Swallowing.
Our mouth is for eating as well as drinking. So if we think about that, why are we breathing through our mouth and not our nose?
Okay.
That makes sense, right?
That's what we've always done. Or you haven't practiced any other breathing. And I want to say something else for those that are tuning in. If you want to leave a question for Anne, please go over to K. Elizabeth Green. If you're on Facebook, if you're watching on YouTube, you can also put it down in the comments and we will pick it up. If you put in the comments, if you're picking it up and watching in Anne's group, we won't be able to answer it. So if you have a question that you'd like answered, please hop on over to K. Elizabeth Green, my Facebook page, so that you can put the comments down. But go ahead, Anne.
Thank you. Yes, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask, and we'll answer them at a later time. All right, so we're talking about nose breathing. Now let's talk about mouth breathers. So I'm going to ask everyone out there a question, and this is something you definitely want to think about. Do you wake up with a dry mouth as a mouth breather? So before I had been practicing Buteyko, I was a mouth breather. Like, for sure I was a mouth breather because I woke up with a dry mouth all the time. And do you wake up tired and fatigued? So as a mouth breather, definitely people actually are not getting enough of the oxygen in their system. Do you have water by your nightstand? Do you have insomnia, sleep apnea? Maybe you use a CPAP. Do you frequently have colds or congestion? And then also, do you talk for a living? Now, I talk for a living. I know, Elizabeth, you talk as well. And I taught classes for many, many years. So definitely mouth breathing is definitely one of the reasons speakers also get to breathe through our nose. So if you answer those questions, yes, any of those questions as a yes, then you are definitely a mouth breather. So what do you think, Elizabeth? Do you think you're a mouth breather?
Well, there are a couple of those on there. I talk for a living. Number 1, I do wake up with a dry mouth. Sometimes I don't keep water on my nightstand, but it makes sense. If your mouth is open, it's drying out.
It is drying out. And that's the reason we want to make sure we're breathing through our nose versus our mouth. So how should we breathe efficiently? And this is the question. Now, I know many of you out there have practiced meditation, as I have, and have practiced yoga and have practiced many transcendental meditation, many different types of meditation. And that is a correct way of breathing. The key is, are we doing that every day and every moment of our life? Not just in the yoga studio, not just during meditation, but during rest, during exercise, and during sleep. And that is the key, not just during those times. So this is about...
I think, Anne, that because we're not conscious of it, we only do it, at least I'll speak for me, only do it when I'm in yoga or I'm being coached or I'm consciously thinking about taking deep breaths and slowing it down to go into meditation.
Exactly. And I did that also for years. And it's what we call breathing re-education. And I have had to learn that myself as a yogini, a yoga instructor, how to retrain my breathing. And so let's talk about the nose. And you had said this earlier, Elizabeth, the nose is the primary source of filtration. Your nose is the first line of defense for your lungs. So the little hairs that are in your nose actually are there to protect you. So breathing through your nose all the time is the best way for to get rid of the bacteria and everything that's around us. So definitely you want to breathe through the nose. Nasal breathing allows for slow breathing. Did you have a question, Elizabeth?
So what you're saying then is we have our own natural mask if we know how to use it properly.
Correct.
That is designed within our bodies to filter out the impurities.
Correct. Exactly. That is perfectly said. The next one is nasal breathing allows for slow breathing. Remember, when we're breathing through our mouth, we're actually not breathing slower. We're either hyperventilating, we're breathing inconsistently. So definitely nasal nose breathing allows us to breathe slower. That's why we practice meditation by breathing through our nose, and also exhaling through your nose, not just inhale. It's also in the exhale that we should breathe or exhale through our nose. So I know some of us practice in yoga different types of breathing, like ujjayi breathing, fire breathing. At those practices, I mean, definitely they're used for certain purposes, but for every day, regardless of yoga, regardless of meditation, every single day we should be practicing nose breathing. Our nose is connected to the diaphragm. So as we inhale through the nose, we should also be breathing through our diaphragm, which is diaphragmatic breathing. Elizabeth, did you have a question?
No, I was going to say, I was looking at the time, and I do want to make sure we do put on how to show, because I think a lot of people can showing help.
Yes, that will be my next. I'm definitely getting there. So we're doing, but I just want to give the distinction of why nose breathing is so much more important than mouth breathing. So better quality sleep. Nose breathers actually have less colds and flus, especially right now. We should be nose breathing because of, again, what is going on around us. And then it reduces anxiety, which is what we're focusing on, and then increasing energy. So real quick. So we just talked about your nose being the first line of defense for your lungs. And here are some breathing techniques. Obviously, we talked about rest, exercise, and sleep. I want to show you how to practice a very simple breathing. It's inhale 4, exhale 6. And we're going to show you by first, we're going to do a quick exercise with our tongue, and it's called tongue popping. It's very simple. It's like this. Okay. And kids do that all the time, right?
Okay.
So when we do tongue popping, where is your tongue?
Top of your top of your mouth.
Yes, the palate of the roof of your mouth. And you want to keep your tongue there at all times because it actually opens up the airways. So we get to retrain our tongue as well to keep it at the roof of our mouth at all times. Now, there's a thing called tongue tie, which I'm actually tongue tied. And the rule of thumb is to put 3/4 of the tongue on the roof of your mouth. And now if you cannot do that, you can just place the tip of your tongue on the roof of your mouth, okay? So that's the first thing. The other thing is low, slow, deep breathing. So diaphragm, everything we do is from the nose, breathing through the nose and breathing through the diaphragm. If you're not familiar with that, you can Google diaphragmatic breathing, check it out, but it's basically 2 inches below your navel. So when you inhale, your abdomen expands, and then when you exhale, your abdomen contracts, okay? And it's going to be very slow and light. So we're not going to make noise with our breath. So that is incorrect, okay? So we're going to breathe in through our nose and exhale through our nose. And then also posture, called PAST, is posture awareness, slow tolerable. And what I mean by slow tolerable, it's actually slow tolerable air hunger. It's what you just mentioned about when you're walking up a hill and you feel like you need to take a deep breath. That's called air hunger. And that's actually what we need to be doing is practicing air hunger. Excuse me. So we're going to practice low, slow, deep breathing. And it's called excuse me, let me take a
and I think, as you said, speakers get dry mouth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect example. So I'm going to take a deep breath. And it's called low, slow, deep breathing, or LSD is what we actually call it.
Now, where are you putting your tongue at this time? Now, you said you're putting your tongue.
The roof of my mouth at all times. And here's the other method. You want to make sure you breathe through your nose at night before you go to bed and see if your tongue is still at the roof of your mouth. This is a practice that I had to do for a whole week to make sure that my tongue was at the roof of my mouth. And as I practiced the Buteyko breathing method, I woke up with my tongue on the roof of the mouth. So at first it was, the first few days I had a difficult time. My tongue was, basically flat. And as I practiced and practiced more, my tongue actually ended up at the roof of my mouth. So from that day forward, my tongue is always on the roof of my mouth during rest, during exercise, and during sleep. So it does take practice. It really does. I know it seems like, well, we should only be doing that during meditation and yoga, but we actually should be doing it every day. Okay, so here's the breathing exercise that I want everyone to practice. And there's only three. There's 3 right now, but there's actually 7 different exercises, and you can find those exercises on buteykoclinic.com. So Elizabeth, if you want to type that in, it's a Buteyko. B as in boy, Teyko, and then clinic.com, buteykoclinic.com. And you will find all the information there on the breathing exercise. There's actually 7 different breathing exercises. And this treats not just anxiety and stress and hyperventilation. It treats asthma, allergies, snoring, COPD, obstructive sleep apnea, fatigue, and so on. So there's definitely a lot more information, but we're going to focus on stress and anxiety and panic. So the breathing exercise is, we're going to do this together. Okay, so through your nose.
Okay.
And we're going to inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale through the nose, even slower. 2, 3, even slower, 4, 5, even slower, and 6. So you want to exhale 50% of your breath, okay? Then 30%, and then 20%.
Now, what do you, okay, explain that.
So when you inhale, right, you're inhaling at 4 counts.
Okay.
When you're exhaling, you're not going to exhale all of your breath all at once. Remember, it's a low, slow, deep diaphragmatic exhalation. So when you exhale, you're going to exhale slowly, about 50%, and then exhale again a little bit more, because it's a much longer exhalation. You're releasing your exhalation slower and slower and slower. So it's
the visual that I got was of a balloon.
Yes, it is the balloon.
Letting it slow, and then you a little bit more, and then a little bit more.
Correct. So it's not a full deflation.
Okay.
It is a slow deflation of the balloon. Right.
Now, what difference does it make with it being slow?
So remember when we focused on the low, slow, and deep? Buteyko's method is the slower you exhale. Remember, we talked about oxygen, CO2, and nitric oxide, right? When we inhale oxygen, it's actually the CO2 that's the stimulus for breathing that allows the oxygen to be transferred into the blood, from the blood into the muscles, tissues, and organs. When we exhale too quickly, when we inhale too quickly, it doesn't allow what we call the oxygen to go into the necessary muscles, tissues, and organs. That's why it has to be slower. And this has to be a daily thing. And that's why it also helps calm the nervous system. It calms the mind. It reduces high blood pressure. It also prevents cardiovascular disease. And of course, there's so many other benefits of reducing our stress. And that's why we need to practice a slower exhalation. Your inhalation is slow too. It's not as if the balloon is full to the top. Like I used to teach people, inhale and expand the belly to full. You actually don't need to expand the belly to the full expansion. It is an inhale of maybe 50% of your belly, and then exhale even slower, and slower. It takes practice, and it does make sense if we think about the biochemistry of it. There's also something that I didn't mention. It's called the Bohr effect. And it is about oxygen being transferred into the red blood cells by the hemoglobin, and it's actually the carbon dioxide that helps release that. So again, it's the biochemistry with the biomechanics, and this is one of the exercises. The other one is for panic attack, anxiety, and stress right now. So we're going to do this one right now. We're going to inhale normally, exhale. You're going to hold your nose, pinch your nose, and hold it for 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release, let go, and then breathe normally for 10 seconds. And then you're going to repeat that again. So this is someone who's having a panic attack. The reason why we want to hold our breath, what happens when someone is breathing too fast? They're hyperventilating, right? They're breathing in too quickly, too much oxygen. We actually want to decrease that. We actually don't want them to take a deep breath. We actually want them to hold their breath so that they're not breathing in too much oxygen and releasing too much carbon dioxide. So again, we'll try this one more time.
All right.
We're going to
Are we going to still be breathing through our nose?
Everything is through the nose.
And we're still going to keep our tongue on the breath? Okay. All right.
Okay. So we're going to inhale, exhale, pinch your nose, Hold your breath. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release. Breathe normally through the nose for 10 seconds. And then you're going to repeat this exercise for 10 minutes or until your anxiety starts to decrease or your panic attack. And breath, we call it breath holding exercise. And we actually in Buteyko do a lot of breath holding exercise. And if you think about swimmers, what do swimmers do when they swim? If we think about Michael Phelps,
they hold their breath.
Correct. So he's actually getting the necessary oxygen, CO2, and nitric oxide in his lungs and then into his muscles and tissues and organs. So actually breath holding is actually an exercise that people have been doing for years. Some people might remember Wim Hof. Wim Hof is very famous. He's been doing cold plunging and also breath hold as well. And so people might be familiar with Wim Hof breathing as well. It's similar and it is different in other ways. For this particular, for Buteyko, this is for stress, anxiety, allergies, asthma, and many, many different respiratory issues.
So that is number 2 that you just demonstrated, that
yes.
Holding the breath, that you're taking in. You're breathing in slowly through the nose. Tongue, I have to think about it. Tongue on the roof of your mouth. And you're breathing out again through the nose, mouth closed. And then you're holding. Okay.
Pinch your nose and then hold it for 5 breaths. Release and then breathe normally.
Okay.
So you're just breathing normally. So you're inhaling, exhale. Pinch your nose. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Release. Breathe normally for 10 seconds and then do it again. So it doesn't have to be a slow inhale and exhale. Just take a normal breath in and a normal breath out. So we're not doing the deep breathing. We're not doing the number 1.
So
this is for someone who's having a panic attack.
When you are already in the midst of things, then you want to just take a breath and hold it. Number 2.
Yeah, if you're having a panic attack, anxiety attack, you want to practice your breath hold, the 5-second breath hold. For regular breathing, it's number 1, inhale 4, exhale 6. Okay, so that's normal breathing, tongue at the roof of your mouth. Obviously, sit up straight. Imagine a string at the top of your head pulling you up, and then you practice your inhale and exhale through the nose only. Okay. Now, number 3 is basically number 1, but for 20 minutes. So for you to practice this for 20 minutes during the day, maybe when you wake up, or what's even better, if you have insomnia or sleep apnea, practice this breathing method 20 minutes before you go to bed. And I do this and I sleep so much more soundly.
I will be trying it tonight and letting people know.
Yes.
Because this is a different way of breathing for me. Or
it's a different, yeah, absolutely. And it's a different way of breathing for me. So as a yogi, I mean, I've been practicing breathing for 20 years. And I've had to retrain my breathing and re-educate myself. So I'm out there also teaching, yogis how to breathe a little bit slower than we normally have outside of yoga class, outside of meditation, but in our regular everyday life, which is what's happening right now. We all get to practice low, slow, deep diaphragmatic breathing. Just remember LSD.
LSD. And it helps with, since we have the time to take it, to actually practice it, so that we have that tool as we move into what's going on.
Yes, this is an everyday, daily thing that we should be doing right now for stress, for anxiety and for panic and hyperventilation. We are breathing too quickly, too shallow. We're breathing in our upper chest. Bring that breath down into the diaphragm. Relax the mind. You know, when we focus on our breath, our mind stops thinking, believe it or not. So it's easier to actually still the breath than it is to still the mind.
Oh, correct. And you have to give your mind something to work with. And if you're telling it that it's focused on your breath, it can't go running around, the sky's falling, the sky's falling.
Exactly.
You have to treat it like a child. You have to give it something to focus on so that it won't drive you up the wall.
Exactly. And that's what leads me, your great lead into what I was going to say here. Pay attention to your thoughts, pay attention to your breath, pay attention to your mind, pay attention to your breath. And that pretty much ends my presentation as far as breathing through stress, anxiety, and panic right now.
Oh, and I really thank you very much for sharing that. I learned something new, and I am sure that everybody who tunes in on replay will learn something new. One of the things that I have been very conscious of is not to, because people are skimming. And later on today, I'm quite sure that as they skim, they will hit upon this and they will really realize that breathing well will help them be well. And I learned the science behind it. Just to review, we went over the science behind how we breathe and the techniques of really 3 great techniques of utilizing your breath. 1, to relax. 1, you're holding. 2, if you have, well, why don't you review the 3?
Okay. So the number 1 exercise is inhale 4 seconds, exhale 6 seconds. Number 2, when you're in an emergency panic attack or anxiety attack, you want to do breath holds. So inhale, exhale normally, pinch your nose, and then hold it for 5 seconds, release, and then do that for about 5 to 10 minutes until your anxiety or panic attack disappears. And then the last one is to practice 20 minutes of this breathing method, but first thing in the morning or before you go to bed, so that you're able to relax your mind and sleep. Remember, we talked about sleep being very, very vital and essential for our health. So do that before you go to bed and you will sleep more deeply. So those are the 3 things that you want to practice.
Well, thank you for reviewing it if you want to, and I'm sure you will want to find out more about Anne. You can find her at info@essentialann.com. Why don't you throw it into the Facebook comments, and I will pin it there.
And can I share a quick book with everyone?
Sure.
This is called Anxiety Free, and it's based on the Buteyko breathing method. It's a perfect book for right now. I will post where you can purchase it. You can purchase it on Amazon. So it's called Anxiety Free, Stop Worrying and Quieting Your Mind. And then the other book is called the Buteyko Clinic Method. It's a very simple book, but you can find all of this online on buteykoclinic.com. And then the other book, which is great, all about sleep with Buteyko. This you can also find on Amazon.com. And it's all by Patrick McEwen, who is actually the person that actually trained me. He's from Ireland, and he brought this to he teaches all over the world on functional breathing patterns.
Well, Anne, I thank you so much. I've learned a great deal. I've picked up some extra tools that I can utilize, and I'm sure that others have also. Again, if you would like to find out more information about the breathing technique, this is where you can go. Pronounce it, Ann.
Buteyko breathing technique.
Okay. That's when I realized that my this and you can catch Ann at info at essentialann.com.
You can also find me on Facebook at Essential Ann, and Instagram on Essential Ann.
And if you are, it's critical at this time for us to, did you place it in your, would you go ahead and put it hit the enter button so I can show it? I want to also tell you about a resource which I have for you, which is how to wake up your power and to get your free personal power assessment. This is where just hit the link and it will take you over to really assess where's your power at this time. And let's see, did you click it on, Ann?
The one on the right or under comments?
No, under comments down at the bottom. If you would just so that
I'm not able to click it.
Okay, I will put it in there then. Well, we've gone almost an hour longer than I had anticipated, but I feel that all of the information was very vital. And since people have time, they will go back and they will be able to listen. And, taking the time to do this is fantastic. I think all of us, all light workers, are being called. I know I'm being called to show up with positive tools that we can utilize right now to calm our emotional and mental state. And breathing is one of those. So, Ann, I thank you so much for sharing with us. Is there anything else that you would like to say?
I would like to say thank you. I'm deeply grateful that we have reconnected after all these years. And I am so happy and excited for everything that you have done for me personally and for everyone out there in the world. So thank you for sharing your light.
Well, that is my goal. That is what I came here to do. And I think as indigos, we're all being called. We're all being called to step up. And so may light, love, and plenty of laughter accompany you on your path. Make sure you breathe. Breathe well so that you'll be well. I am Elizabeth. May you have a blessed one.